to the Casting Factor and our boot camp. I'm Kim Swanson, Casting Director. Glad to have you. I think you're going to find the information in this series absolutely invaluable for your career. I hope that you don't have to make the same mistakes I made when I was first starting off, and you'll be able to take this information and run with it and truly be the success you were intended to be. Now, it's a lot of information, so don't get overwhelmed. Take it step by step, use your book, and take plenty of notes. Of course, if you have any questions as we go, don't hesitate to write us or email us, and we'll be happy to help as much as we possibly can. Our goal is for you to be the success you've always dreamed of being. So happy acting, enjoy, good luck, and we'll see you on the big screen. Well, first of all, welcome everybody. I think most of you know me, but for those of you who don't, I'm Kim Swanson. Glad to have you here today. When we start our Actors Boot Camp, I like to give you a little background on myself so you have an idea of where this information you're going to get today, where it's coming from. So first off, I will tell you I started off in a real small town in Illinois. I did not grow up in a family of entertainers. And my family thought I was crazy for wanting to do anything with production or film or theater at all. They just didn't get it. But I was fortunate enough because the small town I grew up in must have had something in the water, because it's the same town where Dick and Jerry Van Dyke, Gene Hackman, Donald O'Connor, and Bobby Short all came from. And they all grew up actually helping out in a movie theater, working there as their part-time job as ushers. And that's where they started studying film and acting, and that's how they learned it. And then our little hometown, our Parks and Recreation Department, had contests all summer long. Each week was a different park where they would have a stage set up and kids could jump in and enter it. And that's how Dick and Jerry Van Dyke got their start doing pantomime, actually. So I was fortunate enough to have people like that as my examples, that you didn't have to start big, you just had to start, And so that was a really good beginning for me, and I feel very fortunate to have had that. And it was also nice for me to see that people who were extremely successful were still just regular people. And it was amazing how much they're willing to help you out. And the bigger they are, the nicer they are, I found out. The real big shots in Hollywood are usually really warm and welcoming and wonderful people who are happy to help you out and take you under their wing and guide you as much as they can, because they want to pay it back. The ones who are jerks are usually the ones who really haven't made it yet. They're just trying to prove themselves and act like they have. So that's just been my personal experience. But anyway, so my background is I grew up in a small town. I started off by dancing, and my parents put me in dancing very young for physical therapy. I was born with a defect of my legs actually facing backwards because the muscles hadn't developed right. So coming from a small town where there wasn't really physical therapy, and of course it was, the 1980s, right? No, we didn't have things as fancy, so the doctors just simply said, put her in tap dancing as soon as you can. So at age 3, I was put into tap dancing for physical therapy, and this day, it's one of my biggest loves. So, started dancing very young. When I got a little older, my parents decided I was too heavy, so the best way to slim me down would put me in gymnastics. The nearest gymnastics place was about a 35-mile drive to Champaign, Illinois. The Y there just happened to be the home of the United States Olympic team at the time. So my first gymnastics coaches were all Olympic team members. So again, I was lucky. I just was in the right place at the right time to have the absolute best of the best for training. When I reached a certain level on the team there, our coach required we take ballet. So I didn't want anything to do with ballet. I hated it. I thought it was the most boring, awful thing in the world. But I did it because of my love of gymnastics. And so I started taking ballet from a small school in my hometown. After a couple of years, the teacher said to my mom, I've taught her everything I know. I don't know what to do. So I'm going to go get more training. I'm going to take her with me. So we started making a trek on the weekends up to Chicago. To the Giordano School. And if any of you are dancers, you will know that Giordano's is the premier place to study jazz. It's the only full-time, year-round paid jazz dance company in the world. And they do a world tour every year. So 2 years into my dance training, my luck of the draw was to have the top jazz dancers in the world as my teachers. And Gus Giordano specifically, who was known as the godfather of jazz. And so I just, again, was just very lucky that where I landed, I happened to land with absolute top-notch people. And I know it could have gone so wrong. I could have ended up in real recital factories or with scam artists and everything else. I just got really lucky, and I know that. So I was real fortunate to get some good information from those people growing up. But then I decided I wanted to pursue acting full time, and so I did. And I did some theater, did quite a bit of theater. I did George M. I did a chorus line and different things like that. But when my daughter was young, I decided to not do theater any longer. I was going through a divorce, so that I've got to take care of my child. I can't do this coming home at 1 and 2 in the morning. So I settled in St. Louis because I had danced with St. Louis Ballet for a short period of time, and I had friends here. So I came to St. Louis and started teaching dance on the side and working an office job by day, because I thought it was time to be a real person and get a real job, right? You all heard that? What are you doing acting, right? Go get a real job, right? That's silly. Go get a real job, because acting, of course, isn't a real job. We don't work, right? So I did that, and every day I went home in my car literally in tears. I mean, I would be bawling on my way to daycare, thinking, what am I doing in this cubicle? I was so miserable. I couldn't see straight, to the point I walked in one day and I said, I quit. I cannot do this. I just can't. I just knew I was going to die on the inside. So decided I'm just going to really pursue my dance school. And so that's what I did first. And a few years into the dance school, I was expecting my second child and hired a girl to come in to substitute teach, whose background was having a dance school in Texas, but had moved here. And she was a producer by day. So she simply called me up and said, hey, Kim, I really need some help. I'm trying to cast this project, and no one seems to know anybody that meets what I need. I've called agents. I called casting people in town. No one's sending me what I need. Do you know anybody who? I said, oh, yeah, you know, who'd be great for that is Renee. She's perfect. She's only been back from LA a couple years. I think she'd be willing to do something like that still. But do you think you could call her? Sure. It's like, hey, Renee, go audition for her for me. And she, okay, great. A couple weeks later, she called me, Kim, I'm in a real jam again. I really need a guy who can do some back tucks, some aerials. I need an older African-American guy who can really tap into it. You know who'd be great? Let me call up Robert. Let me call up Gordon. I'll send him. And she's like, oh my gosh, they knocked it out of the park. A couple weeks later, she called me again. Kim, I'm in a real bind. And I said, okay, what do you need? And she told me, I said, oh, you know, let's get Lil Robert and Elisa and John and Trevor and Amanda. And she goes, okay. She goes, you think they'll do it? Oh, yeah, they'd love to do it, you know. And so she goes, oh my gosh, it was amazing, you know. Okay, great. And she says, you really should be a casting director. And I said, I don't know anything about casting. And she said, yeah, you do. You really do. And I said, okay, well, you know what? Here's the deal. When you need help with casting, you call me. I will help you out. Okay, but I'm not really a casting director. I'll just do what I can for you. You got to have those letters behind your name. I don't even know what those stand for. I don't know anything about that. I don't know how to begin. She's like, okay. Well, by golly, those first 3 projects I cast for her all won Emmy Awards. And so when they have the Emmy Awards, they play the winning spots at the award shows. And so her spots were playing. Of course, she's walking away with 3 trophies in hand, you know. And people were going, oh my gosh, great casting, you know. Did you shoot that in Chicago? Did you bring them in from LA? Where did your cast come from? And she said, all in St. Louis. And I said, that's just not possible. I've not seen any one of those people ever at my auditions. Where did you find them? How did she find them? And she said, well, my friend Kim found them for me. Well, can I get Kim's phone number? Next thing I knew, everybody in town thought I was a casting director but me, you know? So that's how I started casting. And people would call me and I'd say, I'm not a casting director. I'll help you out, but I'm not a casting director. And so finally, at one point, they said, well, this is how much it pays. And I said, you know, I am a casting director now. It pays a lot more than teaching shuffle steps. So that's how I started casting, and that's my background. But, you know, I was an actress for so long and a dancer for so long, and with no intent of ever working on the other side of the camera in reality. I loved acting, and I still do to this day. But it was interesting to me, the more I got into casting and the more I sat in on pre-production meetings and things, the more I found out of things no one ever told me. I would ask my agent questions. Well, what do you think about this headshot? Oh, that's a good one. Then I found out later on it was all wrong. And I think, oh my gosh, the jobs I could have gotten had I only really understood what they wanted and why they asked what they were asking. So it started off that I had a few people say, gosh, I'd really love to sit down with you for a couple of hours. So we started these seminars. It was a 2-hour little seminar. Then people had so many more questions, I'd write down the questions and we'd add to them. Then about a year later, I did it again. It was 3 hours. Then it became 4 hours. Then it became 6 hours. So now it's just grown into this incredible amount of information of answering questions. It started off with the questions I had that I didn't know the answer to, and now has grown from questions you've all asked me over the years, and they've been put into our book. Okay, so that's what we're going to hit on today. So I would encourage you, if you have more questions I'm not answering today, ask them. Before you know it's going to be a whole week-long seminar. Okay. Okay. So that's my background. That's where this information is coming from. I'm not perfect, and a lot of it's my personal opinion, but I will tell you from experience it works. I've been casting now full-time for nearly 15 years, and when people do what I've outlined here, they come back and say, "You will not believe how much I'm booking." I actually got an email the other day from a girl who she took the boot camp when she very first started. And she walked away in a daze because she said it was too much information, right? But she went out in the world of acting, started getting jobs, came back a year later and said, "I want to get the information I was missing." And I said, "Okay, great." She came and took it again. She's booked over 20 jobs in less than 2 years with no previous acting experience. And she said 90% of it is from what she learned from this book. So it works. It really does work, okay? A lot of it's basic psychology too that we forget about, body language and things like that. It's not all about your acting skills. That's not what gets you the job. Just like any job, you can be a wonderful radiologist, but you're going and interviewing for a radiology position along with 30 other people. How do they choose you? Is it because you're more qualified? No, you all have the same degree, you all got similar grades, you all passed the same tests. It's how do they perceive you as a person? Acting is no different. When you audition, it's a job interview. And so you have to understand the business end of it, and that's what today is about, okay? There are wonderful acting classes. I don't claim this is an acting class. It's not meant to be an acting class. It's about the business end of it, okay? Okay, great. So let's get started. If you'll open up to your book here, to a little inspiration. I am a person of great faith. Not necessarily great religion, but great faith, okay? And I think if you're going to be in acting, you have to be a person of great faith. If you've started off acting, it's because you heard something in here, right? You all feel something in here, and you can't really explain it, but there's some desire inside you that tells you you should be acting. Am I right? Who feels that? Yeah? Yeah. Good. Hang on to that. And how many people here have had people around you try to squash it and think you're absolutely insane for doing it? How many of you have had at least one family member or friend look at you kind of funny when you said, I'm an actor? Yeah, yeah, okay. And you're going to have a lot of that probably the rest of your life until you have an Oscar, okay? And hopefully you'll all have it, and when you get up there, you're going to say, "I'd like to thank Kim Swanson." Okay? Okay? And when you go on David Letterman, just know you have to thank me, okay?